And we welcome you to Big Blue Draft Review presented by Van Heusen. The 2020 NFL Draft is in the books. Bob Papa with two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks and Super Bowl champion Shaun O'Hara. All right, guys, your impressions of this draft for the Giants. Carl, I'll start with you. Heavy emphasis on offense at the early part of the draft and then all defense the rest of the way.
Well, it's about building the team, and you could see that right away when they saw the tackle that they wanted, and he was the only true left tackle coming out in the draft. That tells you that they were serious about addressing the position and specific about the area that they wanted to get addressed.
Yeah, Andrew Thomas, I mean, when you look at his resume and what he did in college football, you can't do anything more and you can't do it better than what Andrew Thomas did. 3 years in the SEC against the best pass rushers. He has great athletic ability, great hands, extremely long arms, which you love as a tackle. Now, the great thing about him coming out is he played right tackle as a true freshman and left tackle the last 2 years. He was the Jacobs Trophy award winner for the best left tackle and best offensive lineman in the SEC. So there were no question marks whatsoever with Andrew Thomas. Plus, he's a high character, great guy. We talked to him after the draft, and he said, "Boy, I just can't wait to get back to work and get up there with my teammates." So high quality character guy. It's a great pick.
Piggyback now, the Giants' second-round draft pick was Xavier Mckinney out of Alabama. A lot of people had him as a late first-round grade. People outside of the organization have raved about this draft pick. He played for Nick Saban. You can relate to that. Just talk about what the Giants are getting in Xavier McKinney.
Well, first and foremost, I know they got the best safety, and he was rated either 1 or 2 as the top safety on the board coming out this year. So they got an elite player, but they also have a leader. They've got what they call an alpha dog. He's a guy who loves structure, who loves to be in an environment where everyone is accountable. And that's what they're going to need on this defense. A guy like him who's going to exhibit leadership from the minute he walks in. He's used to being coached very hard, so he's going to perform.
All right, they drafted Matt Parrot in the 3rd round out of UConn. We spoke to him after he was drafted. Brings more versatility to this offensive line. Big player, a guy that's going to have to develop a little bit, but might not necessarily have to be rushed into things. But, guys, I want to now shift to the 4th round because the Giants went corner, took a player out of UCLA, Darnay Holmes, who some say, Carl, might be the smartest football IQ guy on the defensive side of the ball in all of the draft. What kind of player are the Giants getting in this cornerback?
Well, aside from being a smart football player, they've got a guy, as Coach Judge says, who has great short area quickness. What does that tell you? He's a guy that can play in the slot. He's going to be a nickel guy. He can play outside as well. But playing the slot, you need short area quickness, and they believe he has it.
We go to the 5th round. The Giants take Shane Lemieux out of Oregon, who's an interior offensive lineman. Give me a little breakdown of his game and where do you see him fitting in as far as the Giants are concerned?
Yeah, Shane Lemieux. What a great name, right? All right. Mario Lemieux. He's got the name, but he's wearing Yager's number 68. I love the pick, and I love his style. I mean, he's started 52 straight games in Oregon, so he's a durable kid. He's got that Iron Man quality, and he just loves punishing guys. That's the mindset and the culture that the Giants are trying to bring into that room. When you look at him on film, really good in combo blocks. I was really impressed with his ability to chip defensive linemen on his way up to the 2nd level. Does a really good job with all of that. Very physical. I went back and watched the very first game of the season. The kickoff classic was Oregon versus Auburn, and he's going up against Derek Brown and some of the biggest defensive linemen in the country. And I thought he'd handle himself really well. So he's a physical mauler. He's got some work to do in the passing game, but look, I think that the mindset that he's going to bring to this offensive line, he's a very big pickup.
Carl, the Giants' final 5 picks, all defensive players. Round number 6, Cameron Brown out of Penn State. Then in round 7, Carter Coughlin out of Minnesota. Round 7, T.J. Brunson out of South Carolina. Chris Williamson taken with the 247th pick, a cornerback out of Minnesota. And then Tay Crowder, the final player drafted, a linebacker. Clearly, this is a team that is bringing in a lot of competition. Just talk about this group, and does anyone jump out at you?
Well, you look at Cam Brown, he's a 6'5" guy, rangy guy, so I can see him bidding for time as a pass rusher. He's a rangy guy. Carter Coughlin is another guy who's big, but he's an inside guy. So they've got some guys, but when we look at where they're drafted, one thing it says to me right away, and this is no slight, is that the Giants special teams will be as competitive as anything in the league. They are putting players on this roster that will not only be good players on the field in normal down situations, but in special teams. When you look at the amount of linebackers and defensive backs that they picked up in this draft, that tells me that special teams will not be a stepchild to this team. So you have guys drafted late. It's by circumstance. They'll have to prove their way onto the team, but the best way to do that is be great performers on special teams. But some of these guys have played at very high levels in very good conferences. So I expect them to be good contributors.
Yeah, Carl, I'll just piggyback on that real quick. I mean, when you look at all these linebackers that the Giants took for, in the 7th round, basically, that basically adds versatility to this entire roster. We've heard Joe Judge talk about that. The one guy that really jumped out at me is Carter Coughlin from Minnesota. When you look at this kid on film, all right, he's listed as a linebacker, but he's a defensive end, all right? He was playing a stand-up defensive end at Minnesota, didn't really put his hand in the ground. He was the fastest edge rusher coming out of this draft. He ran a 4.5 40. So I kind of look at him and I think, man, he looks like a slimmer version of Kyler Fackrell, who the Giants signed from the Green Bay Packers. So I think for him, you look at him coming into this defense, he's going to be a guy to keep your eye on. Maybe he fills that Kyle Van Noy role that Joe Judge had up in New England over the last couple of years.
You're watching Big Blue Draft Review presented by Van Heusen, Bob Papa, along with Carl Banks and Shaun O'Hara. We're joined now by the Director of College Scouting for the New York Giants. Chris Pettit joins us here on the show. And Chris, just talk about the dynamic, first and foremost, of working with the new coaching staff, Joe Judge and his staff, and trying to marry learning about them and learning what kind of players they want, what your board says. And it seems as if everything went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, it was a great weekend for the Giants. We had a great draft. I feel like, we'll find out in a couple of years if that's true. But the process of working with the coaches really started day one when they got in the building back when we were working back out of Quest. We got together. I got together with Joe very early in the process, kind of talking about each position, what he looks for in each position, what kind of athletes he likes. It set us up for this situation virtually where we were right on the same page of what we were looking for, and it really came together seamlessly between the scouts and the coaches. It was a great experience.
Given this new format and how this was going to transpire with this virtual draft, did that force you guys to almost over-prepare and to do things differently? Because a week before you want to do the dry run to make sure everything goes smoothly, and did that make the preparation even better this year?
Shaun, I wouldn't say it was better because I think the last 2 years as we've been doing this, Dave and I, we've been ultra prepared. That's been the best thing we've done is we've been so thorough. So I don't think that changed as far as we weren't any more detailed than we were in years past. But I think the communication with the new staff and being prepared on what they're looking for, the versatility in players, and adjusting that aspect of it, definitely we took that into account, the versatility. I think you just look at our class, that's a big theme in it is the versatility of these athletes.
Fans fall in love with a particular player or whatever the narrative says. And I heard a quote from Coach Judge yesterday. It says he's into building a team and not collecting talent, because people can fall in love with talent, but the process of team building is more than just getting talented players.
Correct. I mean, I think that's huge. Carl and Shaun, Bob, you guys are in our building every day and see the transformation, I think, of our roster is just the true team, seeing these guys in the cafeteria, walking the hallways and getting along. All right, you could be a very talented football player, but you might not fit our culture or what we're doing here. So I think that's very important that we keep that in mind. We keep them out, all these guys, we always look for leaders and captains in that regard, but you'll sacrifice on talent, I believe, sometimes to get the right player at the right position that fills a role on our team and what we're building for our team.
Chris, I want to focus on Andrew Thomas, the 4th overall pick. I'm just curious, how far back did you guys really fall in love with him? And And when it came time to grading him, was there anybody close to him when it came down to the pick and you realized that, all right, those three guys are gone ahead of us? So I'm just curious how that played out.
Good question. So going back, I actually was at the SEC championship game in 2018, and our Southeast area scout, I pointed him out that Andrew was going to be a good player. I noticed him there. We've known him a long time, but as far as him with the other class, this was a deep class in tackles, Shaun. I think everyone knows that, and we were lucky. We had the first chance at who we thought was the best tackle in the draft, and we took him.
Chris, you mentioned earlier about, and when Carl asked you the question about it's not just collecting talent, it's team building. You want to make sure that you're bringing in the right kind of player. What is the perfect New York Giant player?
You got two of them on the screen with you, Bob.
Yeah. I mean,
we're talking drafted players.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I do think, we talk about it all the time, and that this is a different place to play than other places, and you have to take that into account, that New York is different. And so we want players that have been in big moments. We want players that have faced adversity and know what that's like and have handled it well. And obviously we want smart, tough, versatile players as well. But it's New York, and it's different, and you got to really take that into account when we evaluate these players, especially the guys that we're going to draft and really want to build this team around. But like I said, you get the qualities of the two guys that are on the screen with you. You got a chance.
Hey, Chris, real quick, I just want to ask you, is there somebody, obviously everybody focuses on the first round, second round, third round. Is there somebody from the fourth round on that you guys are just really giddy about, that kind of, an under the radar guy that nobody really has talked about?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of these guys really are, Shaun. Darnay Holmes is someone, we interviewed him down at the Senior Bowl. He's really at the top of it, just the way he came in and took over the room. And he's one of the hardest working players I've evaluated in my career. All the stuff I've gotten back and all the positive qualities about him. I'm really excited what he's going to bring to our team. I think Matt Parrot's going to develop into a really good player. I'm excited to see how he develops going down the line. And a guy in the seventh round we took, well, we like everyone, but a guy in the seventh round, Chris Williamson, the nickel and potential safety out of Minnesota. I saw him in a game this fall, and he just kind of stuck out to me. There's a little something about him. I think he's tough. He's got some unique qualities, that versatility, like we've talked about. I'm excited to see really all these guys work.
Chris, final question. Obviously, once the draft is done, there's the race for the signing of free agents. Now, just explain how important this is and how you do it and try to do it virtually.
It's such an important part of this. And I think, you look back, because we use this when we talk to the players, our history has been great post-draft. We've done a really good job throughout the years identifying players and getting them in and giving them the chance to make the club. This year, like no other, it was different. It was definitely a little, as everyone's heard, it's a crazy process. And I'm still kind of recovering from Saturday night from that. It was even wilder doing it virtually, but we did an excellent job of identifying those guys. And quite honestly, we were able to sign a lot of players with draftable grades on them, which is, because then you really get an extra draft pick. So that was great. But it was wild doing it virtually. We had at one point all the coaching staff, all the scouting staff in one big Zoom. There was about 60-something heads on my screen, and we're trying to, a lot of egos managing them. But we got through it, Kevin Abrams, Ed Triggs, Tim McDonald, Chad Klunder all helped out, getting the deals done, and we did a great job. I think we hit some home runs, after the draft, but we'll see.
Well, Chris, we appreciate a couple minutes. Obviously, it's been a whirlwind of a week, not only a week, the months since we've all been together, but we appreciate you sharing a couple minutes with us, and congratulations.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Chris Pettit, the director of college scouting for the New York Giants. All right, well, that wraps up the show. Make sure you keep logging on to Giants.com, the Giants mobile app, and, of course, the Giants YouTube channel for the latest news on the Big Blue. They might not be in the facility, but a lot of work is getting done. So for Shaun O'Hara and Carl Banks, I'm Bob Papa. You've been watching Big Blue Draft Review presented by Van Heusen.